resource person, our alumni, Mr. R. Maharajan, Vice President, Bank of America. He's holding 19 plus years of experience in industry. He worked for IBM Global Services, Brewtech Solutions, JP Morgan Case. He got a good experience in the entire SDLC, object-oriented analysis, design, implementation, and testing activities. He has extensive experience in working on Python, C++, and Java for analytical and problem-solving purposes. He spent 10 years with the Bank of America and worked for quants extensively. He has experience in risk scenario and P&L computation for fixed income products. As a highlight to his professional experience, he has won IBM Bravo Award for gaining customer confidence through delivery excellence. We are so glad to have our alumni for his acceptance of knowledge sharing through this webinar. We wholeheartedly welcome you for this program, sir. Welcome, sir. And now you can go for your session, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much for a warm welcome.
Thank
But
you,
you're given more credit probably than I deserve. So I'm proud to introduce myself as alumni of AKCE, and now they have been transformed into KARE, I guess, with a whole lot of students. So even though whatever I accomplished so far in my career, the most rewarding thing is my times in college, as everyone does. Okay, with that, let me step into my today's agenda. So the one which we are going to talk about is on business application transformation that I went through, that I was seeing in my career so far. Not it's not a big career as such yet. Just finished little more than 20 years, but in that time frame itself, I happened to witness a lot of transformations. Um, because when I step into the industry, um, I was thinking that just getting a job is a job well done. So we spend time doing it, but eventually we tend to address solutions that is needed for a business to succeed. So, for a quick introduction on myself, I worked with IBM for some time, and then when I with IBM, I happened to work across different industries, wherein which I had an opportunity to look into the business solutions that's provided and that was there at that time, at that point of time. Then I happened to move into banking industry, where I was very well um, being there for a long time now than I expect. I generally prefer to stick with an industry for 3 years and move on, but with banking that doesn't happen. Probably it was more rewarding or it is more interesting. I'm yet to find, but I'm still in banking industry, and I believe I will stick there for a little more time. Okay, and then I like anyone from the audience to just tell me what do you expect out of this webinar. A quick words. Anyone from audience? Okay, I will. So this gives me uh, this recollects. Correct. Interesting. Nice. So with that, I will take it up um, with no response from audience. Then one point, it's very clear that the students, when I was a student, I never asked any question in any of the presentations. So I believe the same trend still exists even after 20 years or 22 years to be precise. Okay, with that, I will move on. So we are going to see as a topic of interest bifurcate into two, which I will try to explain my experience of where we were. So when I happened to touch base with different industries, what kind of applications that we I have seen, and we are going to see about the next in the second section, session or the section of the presentation. We will see what that have been transformed. I cannot talk about every industry that have transformed, but I can specifically talk about the banking industry transformed from what it was and where we are heading towards. With that, let me start first with e-commerce. That was my first project when I worked. So when there was an e-commerce, there was no Amazon by then or any successful profit making online business were not there. So when 2000, when we happened to touch base with Amazon, uh, they were selling, I believe, books, which we tend to criticize in the company, saying that this cannot be successful and people cannot buy things by without have a feel of it. So that was a huge discussion, but eventually we got a project as you was the shore, and it's a huge, it's a highly visionary team want to do something similar to what you have seen now as an Amazon marketplace or Shopify or BigCommerce. So somebody has that vision by then, and they approached us, and we spent enormous time to do, and we delivered some. But the funny part of the whole story is that none of us have share the vision that the client has. So he was going in one way, and we tried to deliver it in whichever understanding that we had. So things pass by, and in a year or two, we are able to deliver it. But does it become one of the bigger market players today? It is not, but it's an attempt. But I wish that have been the foundation of probably that client's delivery afterwards. So in e-curriculum, Biden is a very much a technology enablement, right? So when I talk about technology enablement, it's nothing but there were some business happening in a world, and we just need to it by giving technology to it. So that was the first purpose of using technology by then. So the applications, when you see, it's morely a technology, a language driven or a product driven. If I remember right, it has been a long time, but if I remember right, that we did it in something called enterprise Java being our main component, writing components that we developed using Java Bean, which we assemble it to get the marketplace. The competitors in, or I believe .com. No, no, it's called, yeah, is it .com? Yeah, .com, I guess. Was that Microsoft? Yeah. Then I moved on from there to health insurance. So that's where I happened to come to US and started my career. So in in then when I talk about insurance, when we start the project, generally when we come from India, the time we don't have a knowledge of good knowledge of health insurance, because we being a hospital based healthcare system area, when we travel we don't know good understanding of all the health insurances. But one thing is very clear, technology wise we know what we need to do. So the applications again in health insurance, I'm going to stick to the same standard for two industries, technology enablement. For example, today you guys may be very familiar with doing insurance claims because we are very much driven by insurance these days. Uh, so the same insurance claim, we need to transform a phone-based system or a paper-based system into a technology-enabled system. And then the first component being the claim processing, which is a primary technology enablement that was happening by then. So I was part of it. The and the second one is when a doctor search is another critical component of any insurance, where which doctor resides closer to you. These two were taking a lot of time and effort, or I will say resource and time to get it delivered. So that has been technology enabled in health insurance. That's where I was part of. And even today now it's traversed in a different direction, but the foundation that we make is very important by then. Then I happened to move into telecom industry. So in telecom industry, it telecom is always one step ahead in adopting the technology, because part of the technology enablement there, even from day one. So telecom was always one step ahead. So on the same scenario, um, there the technology enablement was that any provisioning system, say that's which I was part of, it is a bundled network. Any provisioning should happen through through a manual process that need to be enabled into technology. So what they had before was very much like a client server adaptation, which they had before we step in. So everything was happening, but it was time consuming. It was like tough to manage, which is the biggest problems that we face today. And then they need something as a portal solution. So we moved that into a portal so that the parties involved in the provisioning can be seamlessly connected. So when we do this bundle network project, every participant, every actor in the provisioning process will be on it live, so that they know where each and every order stands. You can call that as a workflow, but it's little more than a workflow because it's a real provisioning as such. So that is on a telecom too. Telecom is also, but this in telecom, it's not a purely a technology enablement from a paper-based process. It is mostly like improvement on a technology enablement from client server to uh, portal enablement. Then I happen to today it is very clear when we read the word, but by then I was not very clear where how does the hospital stands different from insurance is one of the biggest question I had. So then I started with the healthcare. Healthcare is purely technology enablement, where the whole hospital were dealing with everything paper based. So we literally walk into their office and then get the forms and then convert into a digital solution for them. Each and every aspect of it. Um, by then, the X-rays happen to be in a separate system, and their claims happen to be a separate system. Their visits happen to be in a separate system. So first step of this process is getting a paper form and converting into a digital. So in the course of time, there were a couple of systems that is in a process, but it is all in a silo based area. So we created a general repository of information of a patient across the board, so that anybody can have a privilege, have access to patient data, can see in a comprehensive way rather than seeing it in a one aspect of it. There I happen to learn about data transformations, and the data provisioning, which was I think it's called data action shells, if I remember. That's where we happen to put all the data across the different systems. For example, as I mentioned, the X-ray systems and patient triage systems, and then on their claims systems, everything we put together, and then we went through adapting what was the whole big hospital as a network of hospitals. Yeah. Then with all said, now I jump into will jump into something which we are going to discuss a little in detail on a banking. Okay. Banking. When I start with banking is mostly a technology augmented business. Always banking, even though banking is a very old business in place, it adapts technology, like I mentioned in telecom, very quickly, because one who goes to the market quicker will make more money. But given that, quicker aspect of it is mostly driven if for long years by technology. So they are in forefront in adapting the technology. But there is one um, thing, but they are very cautious because you cannot take a chance. Like you cannot adapt a technology which they say it may work or may not work, can't be adapted into banking sector because this is very much involved. Money is very much involved here, so it should be an absolute and perfect solution so that we can take it forward. So when I step into banking industry, I will just explain to you what I saw. I happen to witness the applications that I have never seen before. Even I always feel I was I was I learned a lot before I get my first job. That was always my belief, and I happen to know a lot of things before I got my first job. Even with that standard, even with that knowledge that I have, when I witness the banking industry, it has an application which I never imagined. It's to start with, there is a biggest spectrum of applications that we run through, which in our subsequent sessions we'll go in very detail. But I'll give you one. The area of it is something like a trading. Trading is very sensitive, wherein which the performance should be in top notch. Otherwise, you'll be late. That's what I witnessed there, and it was all seamlessly connected. And till before I step into banking industry, I was thinking that a performance is a little less and need of an hour. But what happened there is performance is driving everything from end to end. So even I happen to read about an application that is or a fair trade in stock exchanges happen to be given to all the brokers in such a way they will have their service in stock exchange itself, so that the wire lag won't let one broker advantage over the next. So they have the system in place inside the stock exchanges with the length of the wire equal between the broker systems and the stock exchange system, so that nobody have any advantage for that matter. So given all that scenario, I happen to work in an application where it's an analytical engine computation. So it's more like you calculate uh, you calculate something very intensively and then deliver it on time. So by then, what drives it? is more about what programming language you use. Like the general question I used to ask at this point in presentation is that in a live thing is the how do you if you have been given a um, objective of achieving something high performance standard, what will be your approach? By then I always say it is a programming language that I was using. So when you give me something and ask to do it quick, I will choose the programming language which is not low level, but which is a high level programming language. Which whenever you talk about performance on that, then I will step my standards slowly down. At the last one will be my assembly language, but just before that will be my C and then C++, which there will be a balance between a performance and the easy to work can be adapted by using C++. Even though in my college days, I have a programming language papers, I believe, for C and C++. But I didn't pay much attention there more than my that I need. I didn't pay more attention there. But here I happen to work in C++ because of the uh, balance between the performance and the easy to work. So why C++ is adapted there? It's purely for performance reason because we do the whole calculation for the whole portfolio overnight, and there's a time limit of it. So we got to do it very quickly. So we put how to do something quickly. Always you put more caching mechanisms in place. Choose the better programming language. Choose the better systems, which are all the regular explanations. Right? We adapted everything, and that's where the application are running. And then this can be interfaced with you name any language that is available there. This calculation engines can be interfaced. This is what something which, as I mentioned, I have seen something which I have not seen in anywhere else in other industry. For example, you develop something as a calculation engine, so you host it somewhere. You can access it in Excel. You can access it in directly using a code to integrate into your application. So by then we have interfaces on C, Java, and then Excel. These four are the main clients. So it's almost exposed across the whole bank to use. So that's where the state we have. So if you take it as a scenario of what we are doing is we are overnight we we consume all the activities of the organization and then evaluate the risk associated with that, and we got to publish it before the next day business start in each and every sector of it. So that's the whole thing, and it was accomplished easily. No, no, sorry, and it was accomplished successfully, so that the business can run. So as the industry talk about, as we talk about, anything you do today, you want to do it better tomorrow. So then comes the huge drive. When I was working in that application, I was very much confident that this the application is a very important application for the business that I'm in. So I will pretty much retire with that application. But as always, people quote saying that every 5 to 10 years we will revamp the whole application stack. So that time comes in, where which even though the application is running very good, the application satisfies the business needs, but the time comes to change. That means the business is demanding to have it in a different perspective of the same application. I just want to emphasize here the transformation here is demanded for what is a bigger question, right? So when we go to the meetings, we used to ask, tell us issues that you have in the applications, right? So that we can adapt this transformation, so that we can move to the next level. But there were no issues as such. But we got to move into different spectrum to satisfy different needs. And always that is driven by business, as I mentioned. So to business, what it is driving it, it's something called regulatory is driving them at that point in time, because we had a big recession by there, by subprime mortgage. So every bank have to be completely transparent to the regulators. So even though you can deliver anything, you have a masterpiece of your application developed or your applications, but that does not suffice the industry to survive without you being transparent to regulatory organization, which I will see as a government. So now the transformations were demanding, even though our own reporting hierarchies, a lot of people resist in the transformation. But as one say, the change will come irrespective of whatever you do, right? So so with all the resistance, but still we got to adapt the change. So there comes the transformation that I'm going to talk about now. So now we are we are concluding on where we were part of it, right? So the main drivers of where we were, are technology enablement, right? As I talked about, couple of industries where technology enablement was the prime work for each and every one of us when we are at the market. And then, as I mentioned, on client server adaptation for telecom and banking, that's more like client server 2 portal based provisioning. Probably I should have used client server 2 centralized provisioning. And then I talked about languages, right? I use C++ to make it performance make it high in performance. Even though I have other options, but I need to balance between my easy to use and performance. So the development team that we had, it's more like a skill based. So one who has done X of it, who can give a more performance driven by a language. So C++ team rewarded more. Say a Java team will be rewarded next to it or more to it. So all based on what the team development team is based on, the knowledge that you have, more than I say the programming language knowledge that you had, or the products that enablements, the products that you know of. And then comes the last point. It's on the same lines of the programming language which I mentioned. It is in the same lines. So with all this, we have a whole set of applications developed from X, which I don't know how it was there, but to where that's where this technology enablement client server, and we have a skill based development team, and the programming language drives the performance and more than anything else by then. I remember one conversation. There used to be a process that calculates a critical piece of information in X amount of time, and we have been given a task to accomplish that in X divided by 4 times. So given that, we didn't do any of the designs. We didn't do any of the change. We just changed the programming language of that to C++, and we are able to get that performance. So that this is where driving by then. So I will conclude here of where we were aspect of the applications. Now we will tend to move into where are we. This is what we are going to talk about in a little more detail here. So hope you know at this point you I want to take a small break out of this so that we have a demarcation between where we were from where to where are we. So I will take a couple of minutes break here. With that, I will go to say that when I studied in AKC, in that's where it's called by then, it's Kalasalingam College of Engineering. It's a computer science engineering. It's only one discipline we studied, and we don't have a choice of choosing across the electives. We cannot choose anything we want. So in our class, everybody, even though it's called electives, but we all took only one thing. One is neural networks, and another one is an artificial intelligence. So anybody comes out of the college, they claim they're computer science and engineering um, people. But now I happen to talk to our HOD and other faculty member, and I have learned that there are more disciplines that is available today. So we are specialized in AI, I believe, IoT, and distributed computing, I guess, and more. So on data science, yeah. So the more disciplines that we are studying today. So with all the disciplines that you're getting into focused studies, we should transformation is a need of an hour now, because once we specialize in each and every area of it, we tend to leverage it. But even though I'm not in academic, for me, my view of whole things that is available there is very limited, because when we sit in industry, we we attend external seminars, or the articles we study, or the educational time that we spend is very limited. So the transformation, we tend to resist on the transformations, thinking that that will do more bad than good. But one, the industry or the players, the successful players in the market will always adapt new things very fast. With only the fast has to be very calculative, meaning that you cannot take a chance. It should succeed, because if I am a new player in a market and I'm just stepping into the market, I can take any direction I want, so that I don't have anything to lose. But if you have already established market and you don't want to be a legacy, you don't want to keep yourself into a legacy area of it, you need to adapt transformation. But here, transformations cannot be aggressive, but that should be a transformation. And transformations don't have any room for failure. It should succeed, because if you don't succeed, you have a lot more to lose than a lot more to gain, because you are a number one player in the market, and you want to sustain that with the transformation, and you don't want to ruin that by doing the transformation not right. So being as an in the industry, you should be very careful in that adaptation. So with that, I will move into to where we step in. Where are we now? So when we think about, so our product is called Crown Jewel in our company, and we got to transform it. As I mentioned just before, we know this is a successful product, and we know this helps our company or our industry very well. And now it's time to transformation. So we took all the cautious steps so that we don't have any room for failure. So this time the transformation is more than programming language transformation or something. It's transformation by the whole team. So we have been provisioned to think it differently. So when we design something, whenever we are asked to change from X to Y, we tend to do a new design and then come up with the solutions, which is again a silo based models, so that our application work. But now they want us to think it in a way that across the whole company this can be leveraged. It's don't mistake me on saying that reusability is what I'm talking about. It is not that, which is that's an old jargon that we used to say, because from the day one we know that uh, the the application that we write or the code we write should be reusable. So that is not what I'm talking about. The thing that used across bank is meaning that a data that you collect from external or any market data or any data inputs that you have should be collected only once, and the data that you use and you produce some derivative numbers of it, or you produce a derived number of it, that should be done in only one way. So there's a two difference, right? When I'm saying the data that you get it from outside, you should across the company, or should you should not go and grab this data multiple times. You should do it only once, and then the way you compute one information should be done in only one way, so that this will be leveraged across the company. So this is the number two task. Next, the with that in place, we got to design something across the bank, not for our own business needs, because when you look into an industry or a company, you will have a lot of line of business inside it. So generally we tend to stick to one line of business that we cater to, but now we got to think it in a perspective that across all line of business can leverage what you have done, and you should think of how to leverage the rest of the line of business that they have developed for you. So every technology team inside the company will stand as such, but they are all going to redesign their applications or transform their applications in a way, in such a way that across the line of business will talk to each other and get it done. For example, even though there is a line of business inside each of the company or each of any of the organizations will be, everybody will have a overlapping functionality. It is inevitable, because even though we demark things like it's all different across across the line of businesses, but we always overlap things because that is how the nature of the business is. Theoretically we can draw a line or demarcation, but it is not possible to do any line of business activities without overlapping with the rest. So across the line of business, we all started to think through this, and we have at the end of all that brainstorming area, we come up with something which is number one. So far till this, I'm just quoting it some time frame here to just give you a perspective. Before 2015, before I'm involved in this process, it's always about very small things. So which I say it's a jargon based industry by then. So we tend to say it's what is that, EJB, that's an enterprise Java beans. And one point it transformed into .com, com plus, com components, and then it gets transformed into, so all the jargons will evolve, and using that jargons or using that adaptation will be is seen as a change, but the change that we are going to do is nothing to do of that sort. So what we have come up with? We come up with a very basic, which the something that I studied in my second year of college, I guess, which we studied something called D base by then. It's a precursor for Fox base and Fox Pro, if I remember right, where we have a file-based database systems, which even this will become a very big discussion. It became a very big discussion when these solutions were put forth. And what is that? It's all a file-based database. So how do you say? So you demark every line of business with a unique identity, and then start storing your data as a file based, so that one don't overlap other. So that we call as a union DB. Probably in academic we may have it like a very formal words to represent this, but we ourselves we call it as a union DB, where in which it's a pure file based. Now the question rises: how a file based system can adapt to such a huge volume, right? So we all moved to file based, to DBMS, to RDBMS, to OODMS, everything, thinking that the volume is bigger, and the 11 rules of DBMS make the data integrity works better. So we all run through this hierarchy, and we are returning to basics, saying that store it in a file based. And the first question, and an obvious question, will be that how do you able to handle the volume? And they say, and the discussions came back asking for why you need a bigger volume like this. So, being that a very thoughtful discussion there, we split that into a coarse grained database models. It's a pure file based, and it's a pure directory based, so that you store something under X folder, and tomorrow you store, and another business will store it under Y, and we can club this together without doing much transformations, or what do you say, transaction log running, or what do you say, merging of two DBs. Merge, it's nothing is needed, just purely connecting two. Right, that's what come up with something called a union DB. So with this, the first objective of line of businesses can work together came up easily here. Even though when if at all very much, if any one of you are very much involved in data area of it, you will have a very big question here, asking me that then you could be dealing with the less amount of data. I will politely reply that the data that we are dealing with is is not as huge as daily transaction of equities, but it is very well closer to what that is. So it's a huge data. That's what I mean. So every line of business will hold things in their own structure. So we came up with unionizing that by making them give a small identifier differences. And then second, says till I didn't come into the application that we delivered yet. Then we started giving the solutions. Before, I want to tell you one thing. Then second proposal is that we want the whole uh, across the organization to use one language. It is, and we have chosen the language which is very portable, which is very easy to learn, which is more like a English like programming language. So we have chosen something called Python. So that we, from now on, we are saying that, okay, let's everybody uses one language so that we don't need to deal with porting. But does that work for a company like this to stick with one? It is not. But any critical functions will be developed in whichever their language of choice. But with the one prerequisite that that should be exposed in Python interface. As I mentioned before, there also we have different language interfaces available. But here, the only request is to expose any of your functionality in a Python interface. So the very critical functions, the calculations that we used to do, we wrap it up and then we expose it in Python. Okay, that work is done. Now you have one unified programming language, which is Python for this discussion for our purpose. And then we have the Union DB, wherein which I have access to whatever data we have across the organization. So now I'm getting closer to what I want to achieve. Now that I'm saying you should stick with one programming language, but the functionalities that I have are very complicated. Can a high level programming language like Python or any of the high level languages can handle an intensive calculations? Yes, it can handle, but in I go and work in office every day from 8 to 9 hours, right? Typically, but they keep me hanging there forever. But 8 to 9 hours. So every compilation of a program and every testing of a program has a time factor. Say you are able to compile in a day 1,000 times, then that is your 1,000 times the productivity, right? So if I run it in a high level languages, every time a process runs, it takes some time. So I need to sit around. Say it takes 1 minute to run objective of what I want to do every day. So that limits me a bigger time, right? It should be very instantaneous. So how do you achieve it? Now you said you need to use Python, so he doesn't have a choice to move into something else. So the third solution that we have give in the transformation area of it is that use distributed computing. Is distributed computing something new that we are inventing? No, it is not. It is already available. Even it is already available in our older applications also. But that is available only to only when we are running things in production or only when we are testing. Or that means only when actually it runs, not in day-to-day development. So now we leveraged the distributed computing to the developers that going to work on these products. So that from their desk, when they run a small application, say the very famous or the first program that you all will be very familiar with, the mostly third year students definitely, is the Hello World program, right? So you tend to think you need to say hello world to almost 100 people at the same time, right? So how I used to do in my old paradigm is that I open up thread. So the threading model, I guess, and then threading model limits with my hardware memory capacity. So it limits me how much thread I can spawn into, and then I will do that say 500 times and then get back the results, right? But now I'm saying I'm giving you a language, or I'm giving you some limited script where I'm saying you can there is no threading, or that is not the same thing can be achieved with. So how to achieve it? You give him 100 grid service instantaneously, then we can do that, right? Same thing. So he runs a program instantaneously, it will run in the grid and get back the results. The map and reduce, we all very, that's all the famous jargons that we use. Similar to that, so the distributed computing is get to is developer table. So what he has now, he has the data across the organization, and now he has the computing power, not the computing power by means of detailed programming. A small script that he is saying, run it in 100 systems and then get me back the results. So the performance that we were we were um, always climbed to resist, that none of the other languages can bring in the performance, now can be achieved with any language, but not by the intensive script that you write or intensive programming that you do, rather than giving a greater scalability across the hardware, right? So you give him the grid, but that should be seamless, right? Because you cannot make a run and you cannot have a huge overhead, then you cannot use it day in day out. For example, say you are doing a valuation of a product, and that product has 3000 underlying, and every 3000 underlying takes like a 50 millisecond of a calculation, which is a huge bit. Then how do you do it on the table, on the local runs, if you want to do it every day, or if in your table, if you're doing some debugging or if you're delivering, you are given the whole grid. So you limit yourself to one, and then you do debug when you do it locally. But if you want to run it as a whole, as to see how does the number comes, you run it in a grid. So these two should be very seamless. So we are given a development platform where a distributed computing is inherent into it. So now he has the DB, he has a computing power, and he has a one unified thing, so that the team become portable now. So each line of business, between the line of business, everybody is portable now. So there is no skill based team is needed. So as a as a owner of a company, or as the management needs something which is portable, that way they can make use of the resources that they have at any given point in time. So the this we with this all three solutions, we got a portable development team. Now the final aspect of the change, which is very interesting aspect, is comes the event based model. Now we are saying that any action that happens in an organization should happen based upon an actual business event. There cannot be a technology event. Okay, let me say what is a technology event or a business event. Technology event is something, say you have a structure, you have a DB data, right? You transform the data, okay, or you copy over this data, you back up this data, or one line of business asking another line of business, give me this kind of data to me for my analysis. So what you do, you copy this data and then writing into this data. These are all the technology events, right? This by itself. So there are before this there is one analysis or some paper that somebody presented, saying that one business event triggers 49 technology event. So one want to do one business activity, that is triggering 49 business technology events. That is where the technology complications are more. So if one business event drives only one technology event, then the whole simplification will be of a great help here. So we make this into a event based model, so that every business event will have one technology event, and that's end of it. I'm not talking about infrastructure management. I'm talking about the business event to the technology event. Say you a business do a transaction, then there is one transaction event. So in whole of our technology stack, that should be one transaction event, so that anyone who tap in will get that transaction event. Okay. What else? One. So almost I will say any business is a give and take. So say we say buy sell. by one event, a cell and another event. But in the technology stack also should have only one event of it. So what will happen? This model will eventually drive you into a scenario where in which you have a capability to traverse back in any time and then get you a state of a model. Say you are in 2020 and we are doing this for last 5 years, completely event driven. So I can now very easily go and stand and ask in 2006 on this day of 25th May, what is my state of my transactions, right? And then I can traverse. It's a temporality, right? You can define the temporality in different dimensions, but that's what I was talking about. It's a travel. So you have a complete control of this. Okay, let's go back in our in our before the one generation before applications. How do you achieve this? Very simple, right? Every transaction, you will give it a time on what time it happens. Okay, that is good. It's the same thing here too in even model, but what's the difference? How do you get back to the state? Because you move the state, data state. You always have a state of data in different time frames. But the problem is that state of data will not work. Give a state of data on any time to anybody in a before, but you cannot process the data historically before. I can give a data. It's a small thin line here. I can give historical data, but I cannot process a historical data. If you think through why that happens, is that I cannot process historical data because I have moved through my source code. I have moved through my application into different generations or different evolutions. So my data is not compatible with my my evolution of my source code. So here comes very interesting piece of it. So our source code is also going to maintain an event based model, so that when I say give me the data as of 2016 May 25th, then I will pick up the source code as of March 25th, and then I will pick up the data as of March 25th, so that I can produce the numbers what is exactly on that time frame. What is the benefit of this? I don't need to store the processed data, which is the most complicated thing that we can do now. So I'm not doing the processed data storage. I'm doing only the event data storage, and I'm making sure that I have a capability to recreate my computations in any point in time. Given that said, what's my even based model gives me? Even based model gives me to the recreation of data at any given point in time. With all this, with all this in place, with all this in place, we have got what what we need for, as I mentioned, if you remember, if you follow closely, you should have remembered the word I used. This transformation is completely driven by regulatory needs. So what will a regulator want to know about? He want to know about the current state of affairs, where a company need to be transparent to the regulators. That is given. That doesn't need a great changes. But going back in time, and you need to give him a data that you show it to him at that time, and you need to recreate that. You cannot store every processed data. So because processed data storage is a nightmare, because you can process in 10 different ways, 100 different ways. So it's just a processing, but the fundamental input, if you just store the fundamental input properly, you can derive the processed data anywhere. So with all in this place, we have successfully able to deliver this transformation after 4 years of work. And and that's all good now. So with that, we delivered what we are asked for, and the bonus of that will be is that we got a portable development team, so we can move our team across board easily. So because everybody has the same knowledge base, the only resistance that we have is that the the developers who like me will tend to resist, saying that we are confined to not to think laterally. We are forced to think it in one specific way. But that is one of the inherent problem there that we are yet to solve. But we will see. But this is the transformation that I like to present it to you all. With that, let me see whether I overrun the time. Okay. With that, I like to conclude with a final note before we get into Q&A. Just to go through quickly, so that sometimes when you sit for more than 40 minutes by a statistics, that you lost where we start with. So where we start with is where we were. We run through a couple of industries applications, which are mostly driven by my own experience, not by the book or something, so that we will see that later. That is technology enablement, client server to portal, skill based development team, and performance by programming languages were driving where we were applications. And then we moved something to where are we, where we adopted a huge transformation that we have I have ever seen yet. So these are huge transformations, and then we made using Union DB distributed computing event based model, and with that we got a team which is very much unified, so that we can move it across the different across the organizations. So we learn from where we were, from where are we, and when now I'm ready to take up questions. Feel free to ask any. Thank you.
Okay, good evening to all. Maharajan, Vanakkam, good morning.
Okay.
Hope
Morning.
you had a coffee.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
think it is almost, you started at 7:30 a.m. there, back there in US.
That's right.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, very kind of you to having accepted our, invitation. Giving it back is a nice thing. Being on time is a nice thing. Though you are busy with your schedule, the moment I told, please talk to our students, immediately you obliged. Thank you again from on behalf of KARE family. Uh, any good memory you have about Kalasalingam to share with?
See, the that's nice question, and I was longing that somebody will ask this question. The all good memories that I had, I should say, probably my wife won't accept that, is from Kalasalingam College. Even though it has been years, not years, it's to be precise, 25 years. I think 94 we started,
Yeah, more than
98
two
we
decades.
finished. Yeah, but still, if you see, we friends from the college, we all talk about each and every moment that happened in the college. I don't know why it's very fresh in memory. When when HOD sir asked me about taking up the session, and there is no room to say no, right? Because I was thinking I should come back. Whether giving back to the students is maybe on the sideline. It's where I have all good memories, right? So it's am I studious in college? Will I study very well? That are all very $1 million question, which I cannot very much answer in my open open forum. But it gave me a lot of confidence, and it gave me a lot of courage to face anything. So the memories are humongous. I can I I can say from my first year, where I think my college staff is Muthukamachi sir is my college. my class. It's still I remember that's a B section. By then, first year B section used to be very popular. That means, in addition to studying, it's very popular in different means also. So, with that, then I stepped into CSE, computer science engineering. I'm very blown away by happen to know about the count of how many students studying there, because in my set it's only 28 students, and with 28 computer science students to something more than 1,000 students is very great to hear. And by then, computer science department is given to students who are little, not little, too mischievous in classes. So everybody want to study triple E or ECE or mechanical, and computer science will be in the last last choice. But no, we have a civil which is next to us. So computer science is one step ahead. So it's very good as you ask this question. I'm just thinking through the buildings that we used to have and the time we spent there. And on our final year, that's where Radhakrishnan sir was onboarded as HOD, and hope a lot of faculties will know about him. Yeah. And I'm glad that uh, I I know Francis through the HOD sir, through my friend. They are the classmates, so he is very passionate. Hope he bring in the whole new energy and whole new creativity to my college and to our college. And my aspiration to our college is that it should be entrepreneur intensive. That's what I was thinking. The thing that I missed when I stepped out of college is that my focus by then was very much towards getting a work more than giving work. So if I have given an opportunity or with help of actually sir, hope you all come out as a great entrepreneur, which makes it very interesting. Yeah. With that, I will conclude, sir.
Definitely, we will have some session on that. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Devanand, who is a common friend of me and Mr. Saravanan, sorry, Maharajan, so that we could connect with each other. And one more question to you, sir, that almost all the students present here are in third year and they are going to be graduated to the final year and they have to prepare themselves for the placement. Any thought on that?
Yeah, sure. I'll definitely have. But I was not placed through college. It's not a placement assistance. We're not there by then. So we went in search of job to Bangalore without knowing how to do the resume. That's my state of affairs in 1998. But today, when I go to colleges here for my campus recruiting, I will share with me what I expect so that you will better prepared for it. One is uh, academically, definitely give your best, whatever you can. So that is one part of it. The second part, which I very much prefer, if I have two people of the same identical way, I give preference to the candidates are more open or more creative in nature and more on accepting and delivering. Let me tell you, this is very important, right? Say we may have whole different view or we may have a unique view on anything that we face, but it's not that your view is the one which will be the final view of an organization. So even though we have our own strong views or our own thing. Um, I always tend to see a student or tend to see any resources that I go out, so that they present their idea and they conceive uh, what I am presenting to them, and then they tend to change their idea, or they can also stick to their idea. But one thing is very important, that they need to conceive where I'm coming from. I just want to cite a quick example so that you understand what is that. In the business transformation that I was talking about, um, I worked in one format, right, for 15 years or 15 years by then. And I was given a task to change the format of my work. So I'm very much resistive there. Why I'm resistive there is that I thought whatever we develop or whatever we have in hand is the best product in the market, and that is also won a lot of awards in the organization itself as a crown jewel. How or why someone would ask me to change it into a totally a different dimension? So we resisted hard. Say the resistance should be in such a way, the resistance and acceptance should go together. Now, where it's a little bit more philosophical also, like the attractiveness and the repulsiveness should go together, so that you present your case and then you accept their case. Is both should go together. With all the resistance and with all their present, we eventually did something, a transformation. After 4 years, I am appreciating that what we did is very good compared to what we had 5 years before. So this is the same thing, but you just come out of college, so you may be very much you are more towards, you can be molded to anything that is very constructive. But one thing is, you should be very much taking the suggestions, or not the suggestions, I want to say, take on a table, the discussion should be very far back and forth. Second point is that you will even though you study the whole slew of, I believe when I was doing 47 subjects were there, and you may have more now because of a lot of specializations, or you will go very deep, or if you don't go deep also, you study shallow also, like me, that's okay. But every problem that is presented to you in your placement assistance, wherever, you just first approach that problem in a common sense attitude of it, right? You're given up, don't immediately jump into technology aspect of it and try to explain it through it in a common sense aspect of it, and then apply technology to enhance it. So these 2 points are the one which I prefer to see with the students that I happen to meet here whenever I go for campus placements.
Dr. Saravanan, any other questions?
Uh, Good evening, sir. Sayanand over here. I would like to ask a question to Maharajan, sir. Can I?
Sure, sure, of course.
Yes, sir. Sai over here. So I've got two
Hi,
sets
sir.
of questions. And my first question would be, to get back to the topic of defining terms as you were at the starting of the session. So the ITBM sector in India has changed throughout in the last 20 years since you have left for the States. But my first question would be like, how do you see this relationship between the business management sector and IT sector when it got collaborated and now it is termed as an ITPM, which is sort of new, which is in last 5-year trend. And my second question that I'd like to shoot is that now most of the companies or the organizations have come up with different domains such as optimization, analyzing, and operations, and they have divided it into sectors so that they can work it off in a less amount of time and deliver a product deliver the product as soon as they can. So for a student like us who are in their third years and if suppose by chance if we love to work upon ITBM, then and which particular domain one should really take care of, and one should really deep dive into. Thank you, sir.
Oh, very good. I'm glad, and Sai, you will be remembered forever by me because you are the first student from AKCU to ask me a question, or a care to ask me a question as a student. So I'm very glad. Because when, as I mentioned, when I'm in a student, I never asked a question because in any of the symposiums that we conducted. So I'm very glad, and I wish most of the students come up with a lot of questions because questions will make you clear and make you more confident than ever. And okay, Sai, let me get back. So ITBM, you mentioned, and I think this is a new trend as you mentioned, but operation. One thing I can combine your both questions into only one. Okay, is specializations or focus on specializations make you very good? Is the first question I can think of. Uh, say, let me again answer on my current scenario from here. As a student of as this third year, so you will be you have one more year, and then you will be going for a job. You get a job. Obviously, you will be placed into one of the specialization assets, right? But everything is very much connected here. Here we have my operations team. I have it here, and you can bifurcate my team, our teams, into multiple areas of it. But what you are studying here is the whole spectrum of it. I will always suggest that even though you start somewhere, you will start definitely will start in one of the specializations. You don't need to confine yourself into one that specialization. I used to think that I want to stick to only one, but I happen to do development, co-development when I start, right? And then I happen to stick in that area, and I never aligned into any of the business process of it. See, as you mentioned operations or anywhere, I never tend to represent myself as a representative of that field until unless you are in the executive rank of it, right? Even by then you should be open so that you can explore multiple stuff. You will start somewhere, but you should always uh, think it in such a way that you are starting it, but you are prepared to do multiple spectrum of it. And you should not stick to, because you started somewhere, you should not stick to that, because then you will lose an opportunity to see what is available in the rest of the area. So you, as a third year student, you just get into any of the work you can. uh, you are not expected to be a specialist of the area where you are going to be get placed. You are seen as a general product that can be molded to any of it, and you will be given one opportunity. But you don't need to be a specialist in one area. You can, but then once you place there, then you should be open enough to come out of it and explore it in other area. So to answer in simple ways to your question, you don't need to specialize in one specific area of it. Keep yourself as broaden as you are. When you step out of the college, it will help you a big terms. After 25 years now, I still believe I passed out in 1998 and happened to do a job in a computer in a company which I was thinking I'll be given an AC and I can work, but I have been given with only one note and asked to design everything under sun as a component based. I was asking where is my computer for the 6 months. I have not even given a computer. I am working computer science in a paper. So But in 2000, I joined into, I came to US. But uh, the whole thing, what I want to say is, you should be, the more knowledge you will have at any point in time with, is when you step out of the college in the next 2 years, you need to gather as much as you could. Then you will start addressing day-to-day affairs. There you won't have much time to enhance what you have, or you can enhance, but you cannot build up something from scratch. So keep yourself as much as broad you can, is an answer to your question. I hope I answered your question. Thanks for the question.
Anybody else? Dr. Saravanan, வேற யாரும் இருக்காங்களா? Hello. Jayanjani ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
Yes. Good evening, all participants. With great gratitude, the Department of Computer Science and Engineering is thanking you so much, sir. Through this webinar, we are educated with a clear view of business application transformation, which is in current scenario, and so many business industry aspects of applications also we have learned. Thank you so much for your splendid session, sir. We do expect you the similar support in near future. I'd also like to thank the management, dean, head of the department, faculty members, and the students for their enormous support. Thank you, one and all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this great opportunity.
Welcome,
And
welcome.
good luck to you all.
Thank you,
Thanks.
thank you, thank you.